Dina Does. I'm Dina, and I know a little bit about a lot, but I want to know more. So join me on this path to self-discovery. Welcome to this episode of Dina Does. Well, we'll be talking about astrology and more specifically a summer astro forecast with my favorite astro lady, Ophi, one half of the AstroTwins. Welcome, my friend.
Hi.
I miss you so much. I don't get to see you anymore.
I know. I got to just come out there. Got to get on a
I
plane
know.
to see you, but you're worth it. I'm coming.
And every time I come to the East Coast, it's like quick in and out to see my mom, or like there's always an appointment, a meeting, something. And I'm always so rushed, I don't get to play. So you have to
Mhm.
come visit me.
Yep. Unless we charter a ship to Pleiades and meet there.
Hey, at this point, I'm ready for anything. Ophi and I are definitely from the same planet. I think we found that in the charts too, right?
Yeah.
Neptune.
Yeah, that's right. Neptune. Bringers of the Dawn, the book about Pleiadians. If
Love
you're
it.
a fellow alien and you're tuning in, if you're not, or if you are, go Google it. Yeah.
All right, so we have so much to talk about. I want to get right to it. I want to talk about the summer forecast because I've been hearing a lot of little whispers about, the summer of love and what that means. But first, before we get into that, I'm the more I learn about astrology, and it's from, of course, your website is so good where I'm always kind of like tapping all around it, and the courses that I've taken in person with you, and you offer all kinds of things from books and beyond. I have no desire to be an astrologer for some reason because I can't retain all this information in my brain. It just I now that I know when I went to Dr. Amen, I know why my brain does not retain all the even if I'm into something, it just doesn't hold that much. I'm more of an intuitive person. So when I get on lives and talk about astrology, I'm kind of just like tapping into something else and it's coming to me. It's nothing like I'm learning or whatever. And that's how I do it. But the more I'm learning is with each sign, there is a part of us that is, if you are more of an awake or aware Pisces, you'll have more of the positive aspects of the sign in your day-to-day life. But if we're still sleeping a little bit, we'll kind of live in the negative aspects. So I know as a Pisces damn well what my negative aspects, and I know and look back in times of my life then I was like in that victim mentality that Pisces sometimes fall into. And I wanted to ask you if you can go through each sign and give us one word for the high end of the sign and the low end of the sign. So some of our listeners may hear that word and say, oh, good, I'm living in this word, or oh, shit, I have work to do. This sounds more like my life. So
Yep.
can we do that?
Honestly, even if you're at the highest vibrations, it's a continuous
It
up
dips.
and down. So it's really on any given day or in any given moment, you can make a choice to go in one direction or the other.
I
So,
know. I mean, healing is such a journey. It really is a journey because just when you think you got something, oh, I over that, along comes another situation in life, and there you go, down to the bottom again.
and to your point about not remembering astrology, I can't even tell you how many times people say that. So, like, I consider it my job to be sort of your external hard drive of astrology and try to make it something that you can understand without having to memorize it or become an astrology expert. So, we're going to do this in English here.
Okay, that's what I love about you.
Jargon, right? So, because it doesn't help. So, well, let's start with Aries, the very first sign. Maybe we should do it by element because there's a common, the zodiac signs are divided into four elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And there are three signs in each element. They all have a set of common traits. So we can kind of talk about that
Encompass it, yeah.
from there. Yeah. So the fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And if you think about fire, it can, well, we're dealing with wildfires as we record this, it can burn everything down on a negative day, or it can heat things up and light a spark. So Aries, as the first fire sign, can be a real trailblazer. They're not afraid to take a chance and be the first and do something no one's dared to do. But on the low end, on the shadow end, it can be selfish. The Leos can be glamorous and protective on a good day, and the shadow side of Leo is very narcissistic and vain. So we have a lot of Leos in our lives, Dina and I. So
I do.
we know the good, the bad, and everything in between. Sagittarius, my sign, we can be on a good day like funny or wise. Then on a bad day, we can be know-it-alls or really blunt and rude. So you'll probably experience me being all of those things on this podcast. So
Same. I'm a rising, as you know, rising and moon.
yeah.
And sometimes I have to like think before I speak.
And when you don't, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, their shadow side is that earth can be very hardened and, dry and stuck and rigid, but in a positive way. It's where you plant the seeds. Without the earth, the ground beneath our feet, we'd have no stability. So stabilizing, good, rigid, and crusty on a bad day. So Tauruses can be very stubborn and just, oh my God, just their shadow side is unwilling to even look at anything. They just have to be right. But on a good day, they can be also very warm and generous and get you to really, I guess, tune into your inner hedonist. It's fun. If you want to eat, shop, drink, and do everything without any guilt, just go with the Taurus. They'll be like, get it, eat it, buy it.
So true.
Virgos can be critical on a bad day and picky and obsessive and neurotic. I'm giving a few extra words in there, but oh my God, it's just the endless, it's never enough. There's no answer. The hole keeps getting dug. But they can also be very discerning and tasteful and soothing, and they can be great, compassionate listeners and, therapists on demand. Capricorns, on a good day, very organized and systematic. They can really just step back from their feelings and be wise and grounding and sensible. I would say you want a Capricorn at the wake or the Shiva after someone dies, because for some reason they're at their best when everyone else is falling apart, and they're just this soothing, grounding force of comfort. So call a Capricorn when someone dies. And call them other times too, because they can get isolated. But the shadows, it can be super rigid and domineering and very like alpha, to the point where they think that they're superior than everyone, and everyone around them feels kind of looked down upon.
I know that well.
Yes. So the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Gemini, they have their reputation as being two-faced. Well, all of the air signs, for starters, can be funny and clever and witty, and they always bring in the new ideas, but they can also be very fickle and flaky and hard to pin down and kind of superficial at their worst. So Geminis can be everything that you read: double talking, two-faced, gossipy, telling all your secret and talking shit, behind your back.
Maya better not be telling all my secrets.
But on a good day, like Maya's always having when she's around Dina, they're super smart. They process information really fast. They're like a walking Yelp and Google. They can find you any information you need, and just very innovative, like super original. Libras on a bad day can be materialistic, really catty and shallow, like the mean girls, unlike any other. And on a good day, they can be very fair and champion the underdogs, and also like create this nice, pleasant, sensual sense of beauty. But they can be kind of victimy when they're off. And then Aquarians, good day, they're original and funny. They shock you with their humor, and they just, they're maybe neck and neck with Geminis for the originality Olympics, but on a bad day, God, they can be such jerks. They just come at you when you're not even ready and just throw that hook. And you're just like, oh my God, where did that come from? It's like a lightning bolt strikes. So that's never happened with Lexi, though, right?
No, never.
And last but definitely not least, the water signs. That's you, Dina. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. At their worst, they can be very over drowning in their emotions and just overly sensitive, taking everything personal, thin skinned, but on a good day, super creative, intuitive, visionary, and just creating this caring, comforting environment for people. So Cancers can be super petty, and they'll clip you with that crab claw. They just are super defensive when they're off, and when they're on, it's like mom, soothing and nurturing and maternal, and you just feel safe around them. Scorpios actually also are very protective at their best, very powerful. Like every now and then I'm like, I wish I could have like a second mom who was a Scorpio, because they're just, they're just so unafraid of everyone and everything, or at least it seems. But on a bad day, they will just cut a bitch, they will. Oh, you did them wrong. You're never going to be forgiven, and you'll never hear it.
Oh, I love that, because season 2, we're talking mostly about our nervous systems and how we can kind of regulate them after trauma, or even after, we talk about all kinds of trauma here, inherited trauma, trauma of our own, just dealing with the outside world and everything else. So even though we want a summer forecast, I like to use astrology also as a tool to understand what's going on with my own emotions and my own feelings, and for the people around me. So it does kind of play into the nervous system, because before we were chatting for a second before we came on recording, and I was saying how last night I was kind of reviewing what we were going to talk about, and I realized that the moon was going to be in Pisces all morning. And I said, okay, now that I know that as a Pisces, so I'm a Pisces sun, but now the moon's in Pisces, which as women, we're more connected, I think, to the moon and our emotions. So I said, okay, tomorrow I have to just understand that I might be a little bit more sensitive or emotional, and I have to give myself the patience and the grace for whatever comes up, to just allow it, because the Pisces moon is going to affect me a little bit more than whether if it was in Leo or something. So I use it as a tool to guide, engage what's happening with myself, when sometimes I won't even understand it. Like, nothing bad happened this morning. Why should I be over emotional? Well, it's because the moon's in freaking Pisces. So I like to use astrology also as a tool for healing, to know when I can really go deep and do some of the work, and also to know when I have to give myself a little break and just allow whatever comes up. And I did a live where I talked about when we had that eclipse in Scorpio.
On 5/5. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It was really rough, because I had all these emotions, and being with a Scorpio, I understand Scorpio emotions really well, of like anger and, like you said, like revenge. Like, I wanted a reckoning for everyone who ever fucked with me. Whereas normally I'm like understanding of, oh, they're broken or they're hurt or whatever. But I was in a totally different space. But it helped me to understand, between an eclipse, the shadow of things coming up that we kind of push down, and also Scorpio season and what that does. So I mean, I know you agree with me, but how can you put it in layman's terms, how people can kind of use, even going and seeing their horoscope every day with you, how can they use that every day to understand more about themselves and the people around them?
Yeah, absolutely. But before we do that, we skipped your sign. And
Oh
it's
gosh, I thought you said Pisces.
no, we did, but we didn't tell them their shadow. So let's do that
Oh,
quickly.
okay.
Talk about the shadow of the eclipse, because the Pisces out there will kill me if we don't do this, right? And yes, I can't wait to answer that question, because I think the moon is one of the best entry points into road testing astrology in your life. And even if you aren't an astrology expert and never want to be one, that just following the moon is very doable, and it really brings the power, the feminine power and the healing power of astrology alive. So that's what I also love about it. Dina and I used to do moon ceremonies together wherever we were, beaches, deserts, fun, wild places. So I can't wait to do more of those with you when we actually start hanging out in person again. But Pisces, real quick, just to get back to them. So your shadow as a Pisces is that, well, you might forget things like your own self because you can be so self-sacrificing and focused on everybody else that all of a sudden you've neglected yourself, and then you'll get resentful later or be like, what, huh, how did that happen? So since you're the last sign of the zodiac, you can be a little you're sort of partly here and partly in some other world a lot of the time. But the positive side of that is that the good Pisces out there, the other world they're in, is a magical, angelic realm that we at least need 1/12 of the population to go visit and shit back from for the rest of us fucked up humans. So, you're the earth angels, the mermaid water angels of the zodiac. So,
Oh, well, yeah, I just did an episode of another podcast talking about compassion and how for years I kind of misunderstood the word and was a martyr and like chose this martyr role. But I had to take accountability for, I can't complain when I choose to deal with people's bullshit or take it on or whatever. So I'm kind of in that era with the eclipse, like I talked about, is kind of like not only seeing my part and everything, but really feeling all the anger and the resentment. But I had grace with myself because I said, well, this is what the stars are saying right now. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it all made sense. So it allowed me to get through all of that easier. So talk about the moon point.
magical about astrology and the moon. It's like, oh, it's not just you, it's not just the planets. You're coexisting, co-creating, intersecting, overlapping, and it's really just it's a collab,
It is.
mixtape between you and the moon every day. So the moon actually moves into a different sign every 2.5 days or so. So every couple of days we get a new energy that comes in. I use an app called iLuna. There are a million moon apps, but it gives me a little beep when the moon moves into another sign. And then
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes.
Yep. And then on my site, astrostyle.com, our daily horoscopes tend to be written according to the moon. So you're going to get a prediction that is centered around the moon most days and other planets that the moon is interacting with, because the planets, we always say, are like the actors in the movie of our lives. And sometimes they have scenes together. So, it would be boring if it's just one actor per scene. Sometimes we have interesting scenes. Sometimes it's a tension between the actors. Sometimes they get along great. But knowing, like you said, Dina, the key is to know what the scene is going to be so you can dress accordingly. Dress accordingly for the party the planets are having that day.
I love that analogy. I'm such a visual person. So to think of it as like a scene, it makes such sense. And, as far as women are concerned, I know most of our listeners and viewers want, but I shout out to all you guys out there. I know some who love Dina does, but in our relationships, if men would just understand that women do move so much with the moon, like you said, every 2.5 days, our moon's going to change because we're going through the same phases.
Planetary PMS.
Yes. So if they just understood that, like, it's not even our fault, we're moving with the moon, and we're going to go from the new to the full, just like the moon does, and our emotions will as well. And what I'm learning more and more about, even though I mentioned like today that the moon is in Pisces, but like you said, there's always aspects of planets that change even during the day that's going to affect that. I mean, that's why my brain is just not big enough to hold. Yours is amazing. That's why you and Tali amaze me how it just rolls off your tongue. And I mean, you're an alien, so it's just kind of, yeah, you're an astro alien, but there's so many aspects of it to understand and to know astrology that it can get overwhelming. So first step is just to go to astrostyle.com, look at your horoscope. Like you said, Ophi, you'll kind of play it off the moon, which is our emotions, and take it from there and click around and see and explore.
Learn about your
Um,
zodiac sign, even just knowing that. I mean, I've also been doing this for like 30 years. So repetition is how we learn. Like, you know how to design spaces because you've been doing it. Like I saw you
yeah.
move into a house. I was like, oh no, what has she done? This is not a Dina house. This house is so old and dated. And then I come back a week later and it looks like a freaking showroom. I'm like, yeah, I just stayed up all night and did it. I'm like,
We all have our
want
gifts.
that superpower.
We all have our gifts. So now we're talking about the planets and the effects that it have on us. Going into our summer forecast, let's just tap real quick on one aspect of it that I'm super interested as far as healing is concerned, and that is Leo is in Venus for most of the summer, which is rare. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So there's good news and bad news about that. When a planet stays an extra long time in one zodiac sign, it's usually because part of that phase is going to be retrograde. So for people have probably heard about Mercury retrograde slash Gatorade slash lemonade, whatever you want to call it. But in a quick explanation, if you've ever been in a car and you passed another car and it felt like you were going backwards, you know, that optical illusion. So what happens is that as you know, we're going around the sun and Mercury passes us in its journey. The speeds are different. So it looks like Mercury's going backwards if we're looking at it in a telescope, through a telescope from Earth. So astrologers measure the journey of the planets 1 degree at a time, it's called. So, but we're watching and it looks like it's going back over degrees. So it's like if you ran down the block, then you ran backwards down the block, and then you had to run forward down the block again. That's what a retrograde is basically like. So Venus is in Leo. It's from June 5th to July 22nd. It's humming along, and we're going to get to enjoy all the good parts of Venus being in Leo, because it's, you know, Leo is romance. It can be drama too, but romance and passion and expression and color, all the kind of things you'd want for summer love. But from July 22nd to September 3rd, Venus goes retrograde. So actually, a retrograde of Venus is when it switches from either being visible at night, an evening star, to visible in the morning, a morning star.
Oh,
So
wow, that's new
yeah, that
information
happens
I didn't know.
it happens every 584 days. We're actually going to be doing, I'll give you this for the show notes. We're going to be doing a romance reset, Venus retrograde little mini course.
Ooh.
So putting all the finishing touches on that, but we've done that a couple times. Every 18 months, Venus goes retrograde for 6 weeks. And so all things that Venus rules will appear to go backwards on Earth. So that's love and harmony. Like all of a sudden, all the celebrity breakup headlines start popping up. But retrogrades are times to really review, renew. Anything with the prefix RE is the kind of common wisdom about it, but it's to go back. Just as Venus appears to be going backwards, we may need to retrace our steps. Maybe we rushed into something or out of something. Sometimes someone from your past can come back during Venus retrograde too. So it can be a time to work on a relationship, a time when a relationship is tested. I believe you're moving during Venus retrograde,
Oh
Dina. So,
gosh.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Shit.
And interestingly, Venus also rules home decor, beauty, aesthetics. So maybe don't decorate the new place in a night. Like
Take my time.
careful. Yeah, take your time. If you're ordering new furniture, like maybe wait until September, and or you might paint one of the walls and be like, actually, I hate this. So
Well, what's good about, I'm glad you're saying this because intuitively, I want to take my time with this home because it's beautifully done. Thank goodness it's like brand new. So there's nothing I have to do right away. But intuitively, I said, let me live there for a little bit and see, spend time in this space and see. So I already wasn't making any plans, not even thinking about that. Because when I think of Venus, see, this is why you're so damn important to my life. Because I was just thinking, okay, don't get any Botox, don't get a new
oh,
haircut, don't dye my
exactly. I was
hair.
gonna say that too. Oh my God. A certain someone who looks like me once got the biggest Botox bruise of her life during a Venus retrograde visit for vitamin B. And then we got asked to be on was it Good Morning America the next day. So, Venus retrograde required extra time in the makeup artist chair at NBC or ABC or whatever. Which one?
Yeah, so that's what I also tell people if they can help it. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, fuck, my wedding is already booked for August, whatever, don't cancel it.
Astrologers used to be super traditional and like there were rules and you never had a wedding during Venus retrograde. It was a blackout period. So obviously we can't be that superstitious anymore, but I'm not going to lie. It is like sort of driving without insurance sometimes. So just make sure you back it up by, renewing your vows a year later because Venus won't be retrograde a year later for sure. So
okay, I like that advice because there's some things you can't help. Like you said, if you're waiting for this venue to open and that's the only day, or family can only come on that day, or busy, you can't avoid it. But there's things you can do to make it better and renewing your vows a year later, even if it's just the two of you in your backyard or something. Just do that.
During Venus retrograde or any retrograde, you may have second thoughts about something or someone. So have your hot girl, hot whatever gender identity you do or don't, hot non-binary summer. That's up to you. It is Pride Month, so hey, have at it. But
for it.
Just know that July 22nd, you may have some second thoughts and be like, I don't know. So take a time out if you need to. If you're not sure, it's okay. It's 2023. This whole scripted relationship linear path thing is overrated anyway.
Retrogrades, like you said, I always take them as a time to reevaluate. Like you said, I've been doing that for years, reevaluate, revisit. And I use it now as not a scary thing, but just to proceed with caution, but reevaluate everything. So if it's like you said, in retrograde and Mercury retrograde, I'll go back for like anything that I've written or I've planned to put out. I'm like, am I sure this is what it should look like? And I just take my time to look it over. So what are things specifically that we can revisit during the summer, specifically August, other than our looks?
Our looks and well, interestingly, 5 days before Venus retrograde, the North Node and the South Node, which are our karmic kind of lighthouses, are going to change signs for the first time in 18 months as well. They're on an 18-month cycle too, just coincidentally. So the lunar nodes are our collective destiny and shadow too. They've been in Taurus and Scorpio, and that's where the eclipses are in those signs as well. So there, and that Scorpio eclipse, thank God, was the last one, by the way.
Oh
and it
gosh,
was very emotional. I was just
talker.
crying. I didn't even know why. And I'm not a crier. I even went to the coffee shop and I had to wear sunglasses. Like eclipses will bring some shit up. But so thank God those are moving aside. And then the South Node is going into Libra. The South Node is what kind of goes underground a little bit. And Libra is a sign of relationships. It's also the sign that's ruled by Venus, which is going retrograde. So the message for the summer after that point is really like, don't focus so much on the other person and on your relationship. The North Node, which is where we're supposed to be focusing and learning and headed, is moving out of Taurus, where it's been. Taurus rules the economy. And hello, we have been dealing with that since it went in there in January 2022. And it's moving into Aries, the sign of the self. So, and it'll be there until October. Sorry, I'm forgetting for a second. It's going to be there for a year and a half, till 2025. So we should be focusing on ourselves and what we want. And you know what? The Aries North Node can bring up anger. It can bring up things that feel unjust. What you want to be careful of is like, if you get angry, if we're talking about trauma here as your framework for this season, if you get angry because you have not advocated for yourself and someone's been treating you a certain way, it doesn't let them off the hook. especially if it's abusive. But you may wake up and be like, I didn't even realize that that wasn't okay for me. And now I am realizing that as Venus goes into this reflective mode, I'm not
I
saying that,
love that.
yeah,
No, I love that because that's such an important part of healing is like self-love and self-forgiving. And again, intuitively, it's funny, I make these love kits and I put them out now like twice a year, 3 times a year. I don't make them that much, but usually my candle is red and like passionate and love. And this time wanted to do green candles for the heart chakra and like really just working on your heart space and what that looks like as it pertains to other people, but more importantly, ourselves too. So
I
I
love
love
that.
that. I like that's what we're selling this
Do it.
when you hear this, it will be for sale. So if you want to go get one and you could take your course along with it. I've been talking a lot about that is like turning all that energy inwards to yourself and the attention to yourself and the forgiveness to yourself and how important that is. So I love that the stars are aligned for that this summer too.
I also realized that I didn't mention that Venus is also associated with money. So it's about attraction,
Ooh.
the attraction of energy, which can be love, which can be money, which can be beautiful things, material things. So during Venus retrograde, be careful. Uh, that's why I think people like shop and then don't like the things that they buy a lot of the times too. It's like the energy that you're attracting or are attracted to. So it's not a good time to like change your hair color or everything like that. Like unless it's anything, make sure it's all reversible.
All right, so let's go over these dates again. So it's July 22nd to
September
September 3rd.
3rd.
So basically the end of summer, just chill.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
make any rash decisions. Don't
Exactly.
spend too much.
Don't spend too much. Don't buy anything non-returnable.
Don't jump into a relationship,
That's right. If
because
you're
you got all
moving with
sorts
your
of feels.
husband, don't
Yeah.
fight over stuff if you can help it, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
this is airing on June 20th, and the summer solstice is June
Ooh.
21st, which is very much worth mentioning, especially to new astro people or astro.
Mm-hmm.
So with summer solstice in the northern hemisphere is when the sun reaches its highest point in the sky compared to, from where we can see it. So what solstice actually means is it means sun standing still. So for 3 days, the sun reaches its peak height and appears to stand still in the sky. So it's an amazing sort of 3-day window where we should stand still and root ourselves in our leadership, our highest shine and power and radiance, and just take it in, because I think it's so important to talk about trauma and healing. But the flip side of that, or the accompanying side of that, is we also have to remember our strength and power that always is like this endless source of light that we have to offer the world too. We can't offer it if we don't heal ourselves, but we also have to stand in it and be aware of what it is. So I think the solstice is a great moment for that.
No, and I love the summer solstice personally because when you think about everything as the seasons or timelines or even like growth from where we talked a little bit about astrology on a live one time that all the signs where the Aries is the baby and
Right.
the Pisces is the crone and all of that. But when you look at the seasons, it's you're about to step into the peak of where everything really blooms to its fullest. The sun is out the longest. So if we think about that as it pertains to ourselves, it's a perfect time to manifest, just leaning into that growth, that
Yeah.
peak growth before fall, where things start to wind down and we start to let things go and we start to get ready to hibernate. So as far as rituals are concerned, summer solstice is one of my favorite because it's that reminder like, hey, we're halfway through, we're ready to peak. Are you on track to what you want to bring to this world or bring to yourself? And maybe do some sort of prayer or ritual or ceremony around
Yeah.
it.
I love that we're talking about things in seasons. Like I feel like talking about age is kind of not the thing that people want to do anymore because age is being experienced differently. Like we're still going through these changes in our decades and seasons of our lives, but I find that so much more empowering than saying anti-aging or
Mm,
getting old. I mean, the way we say things makes such a difference. So with Venus
words
retrograde,
are spells.
yeah,
Mhm.
they really are. So it's a way of thinking about how you talk about your body, your beauty, the summer as well. Like maybe take on like your own the word if words are spells and can't be a good witch and cast a good spell, you know?
Well, I like the word growth instead of age when we talk about, going from, the maiden to the crone kind of thing. It's just more of spiritual aging, meaning we become more wise and more in touch with our bodies and our emotions and everything else. So that's a good way to think of it. I like that
Right. We're
because,
ripening, not expiring. Like cheese
yes,
ripen, milk expires. So I'll be the cheese, you know?
no, we're just growing, we're expanding. So let's look at it that way. That's a good way to look. But yeah, I mean, we're in a very interesting age right now. And the more tools that you have in your spiritual tool belt, the better off you'll be. And that's what I hope to do. What Dina does is offer all different modalities and types of everything from astrology to plant medicine and everything in between. All of these things, if it resonates with you stronger, there's a reason for that. And you have to really lean into that and find your mentors and everything. So I love having you on, Ophi, because we can talk about the shallow things like, don't get your hair colored during retrograde. But really, what we're tapping into is the growth and expansion of ourselves and self reflection. And you really put it in layman's terms for us. So we appreciate that and we love you. And I can't wait to have you on again
Yes.
to talk about the rest of the year. But we're just wishing everyone a beautiful, expansive, healing summer. All right. We'll talk soon. Ophi, I love you.
Okay, Mom, thank you.
Bye.